Hey everybody, welcome back to DJ Tutorials. Today we're going to be continuing on our animation project where I show you how I basically go through my process on creating a scene. You can see here this is basically what we're going to end up with. We're going to have a full room here, believe it or not. We're going to have this material set to the floor. We're going to add some molding here, and we're going to take our 2D assets where we created this right here, the wallpaper texture. We're going to create this really fun map right here and the flame inside of our lantern that we have here. So you can look forward to that in this tutorial, and let's go ahead and get started. Let's finish off the scene. We're going to start by creating the floor and the wall in the back and putting the materials on those. You'll see in the bottom left that I have the keyboard and the mouse for button presses and the mouse presses there, so hopefully you can follow along just fine. So let's add a plane here. And we're just going to scale this up, and we're going to go to a side view, and we're going to just make sure that it's scaled up to where it reaches the end of this picture frame right here. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go into edit mode and make sure that you have the edge select up here, and we're going to hit E for extrude, lock it on the Z, and then go up like this. And this is all just approximate. This doesn't have to be 100% accurate. We're just going to put it up about there. Now, the next thing that we need to do here is if we go over to the UV editing tab, you can see here that this that we're seeing is just the plane that we made. So we need to UV unwrap this again to make this to where this back piece also has some UV coordinates for our materials. So what we need to do here is just hit U in this panel over here, U, and then unwrap, and you can see now I have this. And this is fine just for doing what we're going to do. If we were doing anything else more complicated, we have to do something else, but this will work perfectly fine for the two materials that we're going to put on the floor and the wall here. Let's go back to the Layout tab, and we're going to go into Edit mode, and I'm going to hit 3 here to make sure that I'm on Face Select. Select the floor, at least this floor section here, and we're going to go to the materials panel. And before we really start doing anything else here, let's split our panel like this. You could go over to the shading tab, but I like to do this I don't know, I'm just used to doing it this way. So let's change this to the shader editor here. And you can press new here or new right here. And zoom in. And you can see that it starts off with this principled BSDF. Let's name this floor. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we have Node Wrangler installed. So you want to make sure that if you do a search for Node Wrangler in your add-ons, you have that put in here, because this next step will be very, very easy. Hit Control Shift and then T, and we're going to navigate to our Assets folder, 2D, and the floor here, which we just left it named Wood Cabinet Worn Long, but basically it's just this texture here. And we're going to select all of these textures, and we're going to click right here. It says Principled Texture Setup, okay? And once that's put in, you can see everything's already basically set up for us as far as our tree is concerned. And if we go to the material preview, you can see that it's already been set up. You can see it's on the wall right now, but that's okay. And if we go over here to the mapping, you can see it's set for UV, which is what we want, but we need to change the scale. Now, what you could do is you could just change these individually or add a value in here and then copy paste it down. But if you left click and drag, you can see that little plus icon there, release, and then we can do a search for value. And when we add that in, you can see that there's a 0. And then if we just kind of move it around and then put it right back in this little box right here, it can reshape the box to that actual size there. We can hold shift, left click and drag, and now we can change the size of these planks to whatever we want. So let's just put it to about there like that. And so now we have some wooden planks in here. Now you can make adjustments to this if you'd like, or you could choose a different texture if you don't really like this one. This is what I used for the final, and we don't really see it that much, so I'm just going to leave it sort of like this for now. And with the different lighting that we're going to end up doing, this isn't going to be as sort of like gaudy and garish, so just trust me on that. For the wallpaper here, we're going to go back into edit mode and we're going to select this. And this is going to be a lot more complex because we have just a 2D image that we used. So we're going to over here, click this plus icon, click new, and then we're going to call this wallpaper and assign that plane to this new texture here. And we could just, make this a regular color if we want, but we already made a 2D texture that we're going to do some stuff to make this wallpaper. So let's go ahead and do that. And what we want to do here is select the principled BSDF. And remember that we have Node Wrangler installed. If we hit Control T, it will automatically create this node setup here, which is really nice and handy. And what we want to do is navigate to that wallpaper texture that we made in our assets folder, 2D, wallpaper, and we can see we have right here wallpaper seamless. So we open that up and there it is. Now the same thing, we need to change the scaling. So left click and drag this out and bring in, if we type in value, click the value up here at the top and place it right there. And now we can hold shift, left click and drag that to whatever size we want. To make this really look like something from the period, we need to get some more period accurate colors. Now this can depend on what you're trying to do. I was looking for something that was Victorian-esque, and I'll just show you what I got off the internet. So if I split this panel up here and hide a couple of those things and change this to the image editor, I'm going to open up this texture right here, and you can find this online. You just, look around for textures, but you don't really need to have a licensing for this because we're just going to use this as a palette picker. So feel free to look for your own things, or you can sort of like copy and paste the hex values or whatever, and you can follow along just fine with some different colors. So if we take these and move them over this way like this, and what we might want to do here if you're having trouble loading this up is if you hit /, you can isolate this to just be by itself. And we can turn off the overlays right here. And we can place, if we hit Shift-A, converter color ramp like this, and place that right in there. And what we can do from here is we can add a bunch of colors and we can move these around to change the color, not just black and white values. First, let's pick a bright color. Let's actually keep the white there, and I'm just going to zoom in so you can see this easier. Let's just keep the white color there, and we're going to add another color like this. And you can take the flag, move it over, click this color band right here, then select the eyedropper, and we can start to just select some of these colors. And just start hitting the plus icon and adding some of these colors into your scene. You can see I just shifted it from over here to over here. We can grab this like that if we'd like, or we can actually grab one of these more goldish colors like this. You can also, if you don't like the saturation, you can click the color and then pull the saturation up a bit or move these around to something that you like even more. It's really up to you at this point to get something that you like. And I'm just going to speed up the footage here so you can sort of like follow along with me and change your colors if you'd like, the way that I'm doing it, or you can make it your own. So this is pretty much what I ended up with like this right here. Now for you, you might not like this, or you might want to change it to something else. It's totally up to you. That's fine. And I'm going to show you a really cool thing that we're going to do next. And that involves basically creating a metallic map from our image. In the Victorian era, because they use a lot of candles and other light sources like lanterns and lamps and things like that, the wallpapers were usually made with some sort of reflective material. Either it was a high gloss or there was some sort of like a metal or some sort of reflective material over the top. And a lot of times they did use some sort of metal or gold leafing or something like that to reflect the light and make it easier to light up a room. So we're going to make one of those really quickly here. We're going to add a color ramp just like this. We're going to take this right here and put it into there. Then take this and put it into the metallic right here. And if we look through there, white means metallic and black means non-metallic. So we're just going to make it this more flowery sections like this, just by pulling that up and pulling this over, kind of like that. And if we look through here, there is a metal, but there's a roughness value. You can see here if we pull that all the way down, it's like that. If we pull it all the way up, it's like that. But what we kind of want to do here is we want to make it so that the metallic stuff is kind of more reflective and the matted stuff is less reflective. So let's duplicate this really quick and take this and put it right in there, and then take this and put it into the roughness. Actually, let's swap these around like that. So this one is for the metallic, and this one is for the roughness. And what we need to do is black means smooth or more reflective, and white means rough. So we need to actually swap these here. And let's take this, and we're not gonna make it as reflective as that. Let's pull it up to about there, and then look through here. And you can see now we have a really neat, sort of like more three-dimensional feel to this already because we have more stuff going on. And then on top of all that, what we could do is make a bump map out of this. So we can add a vector bump like this, and we can actually take this, put it into the height, and take the normal and put it into there. And we want the gold, the metallic stuff, to be kind of like popping up off of it. So let's invert like this. And it's way too robust, so let's change this to like a 0.1 or a 0.01 or something like that. And you can see now we have a little bit of some depth to this wallpaper. Now, I think that in the final of the one I actually put online, I didn't do this particular step. I like grabbed a different material and used that as sort of like a height map to sort of like make it look a little bit different, or more accurately a bump map. But this I think looks pretty cool, and we can do that for this particular build of this scene. So I think that looks pretty cool. Might be a little strong. I might put that as a 0.05 or something like that, but looks pretty nice, and I'm going to say that that is good. So we don't need this anymore. Let's get rid of that, and we're going to go out of, let's actually turn back on our overlays here and hit / on the numpad. And we're going to now create the molding that goes on the bottom and the crown molding here that goes on the top. And this is actually pretty easy to do. If we go into edit mode with the room selected, and we go to the edge select right here and select the top and the bottom sections like this, we can hit Shift D to duplicate that, right click, and let's hit P, and we're going to separate this by selection. And you can see here this says plane and then plane 01. Plane, this is the room, so let's just call that room. And then plane 01 here, let's call this molding. So make sure that you're out of edit mode, and let's select the molding here and go to /. And you can see here that we have these two lines right here. Now what we can do is we can right click and convert this. Let's actually move this down a little bit. We can convert this to a curve. Now what's really cool about curves is if we go down here to the object data properties and we go down to geometry, there is right here an extrude, so you can extrude this out if you'd like. We are not going to extrude it out. We're going to use bevel. And if we go to profile, we can choose from some presets here, some very common stuff. So go to the preset, and there's a cornice molding and a crown molding. So if we select crown molding, for example, you can see that there's this profile right here in this little editor right here in this window. And you can't see anything yet because we haven't put any depth onto it. So there's some of the depth. But also, the profile doesn't really look like this. It looks a little bit weird. And that's because we do not have enough resolution for this. So we need to increase the resolution just like that. And you can see that now there is a shape that looks like that. And down here, there's a shape that looks like this. So for this scene, if we hit / on the numpad, for this scene right here, we could grab this and grab it on the y-axis and pull it back, and then we basically have a molding on the ground. And on the top, we have a molding on the top as well. Now, the camera's not going to see the roof, so we really don't need to worry about the fact that this extends out beyond. In fact, let's also make this shaded smooth. So right-click, shade smooth, just like that. And we could just leave it like this, but if you wanted to change this out and you wanted to keep this bottom one and change this top one to a different molding, what we could do is go back into edit mode, select the bottom section right there, select P to separate this, and then for the top one, we can choose, let's say, cornice molding, like that. and pull this out like so, if we'd like to. And then you have molding that looks like that at the top, and then you have molding that looks like this at the bottom. And all we really need to do at this point is make a new material, and we're not going to get too fancy with this. We're going to leave this pretty common. We're just going to make this a color. So if we just zoom in here at like our either wallpaper or this really cool picture frame right here, we can actually select a color from there, maybe that color, and then select this top one, select the bottom one again because we want this one to be selected. See how it's outlined in orange right there? Control L to link materials, and now they both have the same material. So if you made an adjustment here, it now is adjusting for both. So you can keep it white, you can change it to a dark color, you can make it black, you can make it brown. You can kind of do whatever you want with this, and I'm actually going to take the roughness down a little bit, maybe like this. And you can add some other materials if you'd like, as far as trying to make it look a little bit, less, smooth or boring or whatever word you want to use to describe what it currently looks like. You could feel free to do that, but I'm really not going to worry too much about that because it's going to be in the background. We're not really going to be looking at it very much, and it's going to not be as well lit up as we're seeing right here in this previewer. So that's a important thing to note. Sometimes what I like to do in my process is I will put a placeholder material like this on there, and then later if it just seems like it's a little bit too obvious that it's sort of just this, standard smooth material, I will go back in and I will add a little bit of a material or a texture to make it look a little bit more interesting. But for this one, since we are going to be mostly focused right here on this table, I doubt that someone's going to be looking back there, and the lighting that we're going to create is going to make it to where our eye is drawn here, hopefully, and not there. Let's save our file, so save as, and you can see that I've called this Scene 1 version 2 here, so let's go ahead and save that. And we're going to add very quickly here the map and the flame that we created. So if we hit Shift, right click, we can set the 3D cursor right there. And what we can do is, let's go to solid mode, go to edit preferences, and make sure that what you have installed here is what's called images as planes. See right here, import export images as planes. We want to make sure we have that because it makes a lot of stuff really easy. We want to go to file, import, and then we're going to go to images as planes and then navigate to our map and make sure that we get the 1800s map fix right here. Import images as planes. There's a lot of stuff over here. You can look through this if you'd like, but really it's all set to all the stuff that we kind of need. Import images as planes. There it is right there. And it looks weird because it's overlaying right on top of the table. So we just need to grab this, lock it on Z, pull it up just a tad, and there it is. So let's scale it down also like so. Control A to apply the scale and look at this rendered, or you can look at it in the material preview, and there we have our really cool map with the alpha channel where it looks nice and torn on the edges. Now, if you wanted to add depth to this, like with a solidify modifier, if I isolate this, you can see if I look at it from the side, do you see this? Okay. So because we're using the PNG that has an alpha channel, when you solidify, it's making that see-through because there's an alpha channel there. So what you would need to do to make this work is you'd have to go into the material or the go into edit mode, select all of these corners, Control Shift B, which will add a bevel to the edge. Do you see that? Let me just zoom in. Control Shift B will add a bevel to the edge if you drag it out like this. And you want to drag it in far enough to where it will actually take over those sides like that. And then what you need to do is go over to the UV editing. Make sure that all of the stuff is selected here. And then you need to grab all of this inside this window and you need to pull that in. Okay? So once you do that, you should be able to see, if we go back over like this, you can see that now it's actually going through properly, and you can remove from here, you can actually remove the alpha channel like this, okay? So that's going to be how you fix that to make it a solidify if you wanted to make it look like it has more depth. However, I'm going to undo all of that, And we're just going to leave it as a flat plane for now, and it will look just fine in the render since there's really not a lot going on with this thing anyway at the moment, so this should work just fine. Next, let's add our flame. So if we select the lantern like this and hit period on the numpad, and just zoom in a little bit to where we're inside of the object, let's actually go to solid mode, and shift right click on the wick right here. Then we can add our object right there instead of having to move it all around everywhere. So File, Import, Images as Planes, and then we're going to go back to our flame, the burning candle burning fix right here, Import Images as Planes, and you can see it's a little bit too big, so we can scale this down. And we need to also rotate this on the x-axis 90 degrees like this. And let's go to the material preview, and you'll see that there's a little bit of an issue here. You can see that we're not actually able to see through our glass here. So if you select your object, go to the materials here where the glass is, and go to where it says settings, what we need to do is we need to turn this on right here, show backface. And to make this look a little bit better in the render, what we want to do is change this to alpha hashed as well. That'll make it a little bit easier to see some stuff that's going on. So then let's go up here and let's actually change a couple things. Let's select our map real quick. You can see it's called 1800s map fix. Let's just call this map. And then for our candle burning fix, let's just call this flame to make it easier. And what we want to do is we want to move this to where it's actually on the wick proper. So we can zoom in here. We can rotate it on the z-axis like this. And we're going to be doing some adjustments to this in general. To make this look a little bit more interesting. It will currently just look kind of like a little flat thing that's in here, but that's okay. Let's move it. And what we could do is we can actually, if we hit G for grab and then Z twice, it'll go along the normal. So we can just pull it just like this. So we want to get that right in front of that wick there, kind of like that. Maybe grab Z a little bit more like so. And there we have that. Now it's a little bit tall as far as the size, so let's actually bring it down a little bit, maybe like this, whatever you think will work out for you. And we can also, down here in our materials, let's just zoom in a little bit, we can make this into an emission. So let's take this color right here, put it into the emission, and then the emission strength, you can sort of adjust this. So I'm going to leave it as a 1 right now. And up here, let's just change this to a rendered view. And you can see there is our flame. Now you'll notice that even though we have this emission, and if we pull this emission strength all the way up, you can notice that it doesn't really have a lot of effect on the scene. There's a couple reasons for that, but one of the main reasons is that the way that illumination works in Eevee is not as robust as in Cycles. So what we need to do to just sort of like make this work out a little bit better for us is we need to also add, if we hit Shift A light and a point light like this, okay? And what we want to do is take the radius and we're going to hold shift and left click and drag that down a bit and take this color and we're just going to make that a nice warm light. And there you can see we now have a light source that's coming from the inside and lighting up that scene there, or at least lighting up the map. So one thing I'd like to do is I'd like to actually add a little bit more of a robust nature to our map. And what we can do is we can actually take this right here and we can do like we did with the background. We can take the color ramp here and we can put it like this, take the color, put it into that color ramp, and we can make a metallic. And I really like when the gold parts on these maps are more of a metal color. So we can take this white and pull it up like this, and this black and pull it like this. We actually want this opposite, so we can go like that there. And when we look through, you can see that now there's a metal where that gold is. And if we add another color ramp, take the color and put it into that color ramp there, and then put that into the roughness, just like we did before, we can then control, remember black is shiny and white is rough, we can control the metal part to be more shiny, just like this. So now you have some shiny bits, and we want to not make that quite as reflective. We can pull this down a bit, kind of like that. And now we have a really fun metallic shader mixed in with our regular sort of like vellum paper shader. and it looks like there's a really neat gold leaf paint right there on the top of this, or some kind of metal that's been used over the top of this. So that looks really neat. Thanks so much for watching. Hopefully you've been able to follow along and make some really cool materials out of these 2D assets that we created. If you're enjoying this series so far, please throw me a like and a comment down below. That'd be awesome. And if you're not subscribed, please become a subscriber. Thanks so much to all my patrons and my YouTube members. You guys are awesome. And if you want to become a patron, you can take a look at the link down below in the video description. And I will see you all next time on DJ Tutorials.